Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, welcome. On this channel we post writing tips, unboxings, book hauls, book reviews and the occasional vlog. And today I have another book review for you, and it is a book club read for me, and it is Emily Wilde's Encyclopaedia of Fairies by Heather Fawcett. I know this is part of, I believe, a trilogy. I know there's definitely a second one out because it's a really pretty sage green colour. The cover, guys, it's so cute. I know I've picked this up in the shop before and looked at it but put it back down. So when it came up in my book club, I was excited to read this one. I have mixed feelings on it though. As always with book reviews, I'll read you guys the blurb first. Before we get into that, if you guys like my t-shirt, this is from my band Wooden Elephants. I'll pop a link below to our YouTube channel and also to TeeMill, which is where you can order these t-shirts. We also have a new type t-shirt out from our new EP, which is available on Bandcamp, Amazon Music, Apple Music, and all the various places. If you are interested, all the links are down below. Blurb time. Emily Wilde is good at many things. She is a genius scholar and a meticulous researcher who is writing the world's first encyclopedia of fairy lore. But Emily Wilde is not good at people. So when she arrives in the hard-scrabble village of Hransvik, Emily has no intention of befriending the gruff townsfolk, nor does she care to spend time with another new arrival, her insufferably dashing rival Wendell Bamblebee. But as Emily gets closer to uncovering the secrets of the Hidden Ones, the most elusive of all fairies, she also finds herself on the trail of another mystery. Who is Wendell Bamblebee, and what does he really want? To find the answer, she'll have to unlock the great mystery of all, her own heart. We do have a lot of reviews here. We have Forget Dark Academia, give me instead this kind of winter sunshine, sharp-tongued and footnoted academia full of field trips and grumpy romance by Freya Marske, author of A Marvellous Light. Enchanting in every sense of the word from H.G. Parry, author of The Unlikely Escape of Uriah Heep. The ideal book to curl up with on a chilly winter's evening. This book is an absolute delight. That's from Megan Bannon, author of The Undertaking of Heart and Mercy. And a gorgeous fantasy that sparkles with snow and magic from Sangu Mandana, author of The Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches. I've heard of that one. There's also a review on the front by India Holton saying a charmingly whimsical delight. And I was so excited for a whimsical read. I love whimsical fantasy. I'm really into the Fae, so I was super excited. I'm on the fence on this one. Before we get into my quotes, don't forget, if you like what you see, to subscribe to this channel. Your continual support means a lot, so thank you guys so much. Let's go into my quotes from this book, and then we'll get to my overall review. I'm still quite confused. Page 4. It was then, as I stared at the empty hearth, hungry and cold, that I began to wonder if I would die here. Right, now this is page 4 in the book, where Emily Wilde has literally just arrived at the cottage she's going to live in. Now bear in mind, she's been on a boat trip and she's got to the cottage and she isn't sure how to light a fire and she doesn't know if there's any food in the house. So she's gone from just arriving to I'm gonna die. Dramatic much? I'm sure she ate on the boat. She's walked through the town. The town has a shop and a pub. There will be food. I don't know why she's so dramatic about it. Page 13. I guessed that his father was not in fact proud of his son's skill in the kitchen, perhaps even viewing it as a degradation of his manhood. No? What do you mean degradation of his manhood because he can cook? No! Now, the start of this book really rubbed me up the wrong way, alright? It really has just... no. Page 33. At the beginning of this book, we find Emily described as an adventurer who has travelled vastly, okay? She's a historian, she has travelled a lot, she's tried to meet a lot of fae, so she's, been to fairyland, she's been in danger, all this stuff. But she has no idea how to light a fire or how to chop wood. Now, I understand she is a university lecturer to an extent, so she's an academic. But if you're an adventurer and you're described repeatedly as an adventurer, then surely you can light a fire. Skip a bit, and Bamblebee appears. Now, Bamblebee is also a lecturer from Oxford, so he's also an academic, and he doesn't know how to light the fire. But they make it's 2 students who come with them to do the fire. Now, they aren't quite sure, but they're making a hash of it. Now, I understand Bumblebee not being able to light the fire to add to his character of being this uptight, make everyone else do all the hard labour kind of person. But she's described as an adventurer and she looks down at him. But how can she look down at him when she also can't do it? Page 101. You have to help. I do not. Give it one of your scowls. It will split itself in 2. By page 101, Bumblebee has appeared and Bumblebee and Emily have a really good sarky back and forth together. When I first started reading this, I'm really not into this book. I was not enjoying it. But then when there's 2 people and they're bouncing off each other, I started to get into it more. So I really enjoy this love-hate relationship that Bumblebee and Emily have. Now, I have 2 reasons for this. And one is that the arguments are generally quite humorous. 2 is that we have dialogue. Now, this book is a lot of telling. It's written as if from Emily's diary, but even from a diary point of view, there's a lot of telling. And because of that, you're just reading loads of information. So the dialogue is really good because it breaks it up. And it's one of the reasons I always think that Terry Pratchett, who, if you haven't seen my reviews on him, I'll put a link above to my Discord series reviews, is very good at keeping you in the book and showing, not telling. And I believe part of the reason for that is because he uses so much dialogue that you have to find out through the characters. Whereas because this didn't use much dialogue until Bumblebee appeared, you don't find that much out through showing. It's just told to you by Emily in her diary. Page 188. Eventually, I grew bored of the whole thing and knocked the sword out of his hand. Then I knocked his head off with one well-aimed stroke, nice and clean and hugely satisfying. In fact, I liked it so much that I wound back time and did it again, just to hear the lovely thunk of his head hitting the snow. I had just decided to have a 3rd go at it, for we folk like things that come in 3s, you know, when you roared at me to stop. This is why I love Bumblebee. So that is Bumblebee fighting another member of the Fae, and I am all on Bumblebee here. But it's because, okay, Bumblebee is not a nice person, okay? He's not nice. But I like reading about him. I really do. Page 210. From you. Are they covered in thorns? Bumblebee keeps receiving gifts from the villagers. Now, I'm not going to tell you why because it's a huge spoiler. But this time, Emily says she chose the gifts that he's sent. So he's saying, you know, are they covered in thorns because they're from her and with their love-hate relationship? Really, it would be poisoned. Page 217. He was clutching his doll tight to his chest. Some of its hair seemed to have refrozen, but not all. Guilt nudged at me, and I could not quash it this time. So I did what I was used to doing with troublesome feelings, and shoved it deep down until it was buried by other things. The first time I read this, I thought it was really funny, because it's like, oh, I don't like that feeling, I'll just get rid of it. Because Emily comes across as neurodivergent in this, which I really enjoyed. It has good representation. Emily is not good with people and she doesn't fully understand the nuances of conversation, of hidden meanings, all of these things. So she's very practical, very logical. So if it's not needed, get rid of it. It's not a thing. And so at first I found this very humorous and I loved it. However, I then didn't because I reread it and realised that just before this point it says that she can't, I can't say the word, squash the feeling. But then it says at the end of this that she does squash the feeling. Bit contradictory. I find a lot of this book very contradictory. It contradicts itself all the time and I don't think it's on purpose. My last 2 quotes now, page 227. Emily's description of her ex, Leopold, is just wonderful. I'm going to leave, he would announce at a dinner party he wasn't enjoying. I have stopped listening, he would say to a long-winded colleague. I'm going to kiss you. I don't know why anyone would mind this. It's very relaxing to know what other people are about to do. I love that relationship style. I thought it was really sweet. And finally, page 276. Shadow padded up to me and put his head on my knee, all forgiven, as it always is with dogs. If I had frightened my cat as I had Shadow, she'd ignore me for days or possibly put a curse on me. But then cats have self-respect. Okay, I just love that. We're now going to go into my overall review of this book. I'm so up and down with this book. It seemed like two different books in one. So at the start, hated it. I didn't like Heather Fawcett's writing. I didn't like the characters. I really was not into it, and I hated how useless our protagonist Emily Wilde was. By the end of the book, I was really enjoying reading this. I was having a great time. But it felt like two different writers. Even stuff like at the start, the thing about the losing the manhood because of cooking. And yet by the end, we have a fantastic lesbian couple represented. Why? I also found, so this is an adult fiction. Now, I believe Heather Fawcett mainly writes middle grade books, I want to say, younger audience books. So I think this might be her first delving into adult. Now, I don't think this is adult. It comes across as YA. However, the writing style comes across as adult because of the amount of telling. So the writing style comes across as adult, but the writing content comes across as young adult. It's not fast-paced enough to be young adult, but it's also not involved enough, I feel, to be adult sometimes. It's this weird middle ground. I also found the plot was meandering, especially to begin with, and every single conflict was just sorted far too quickly and easily, like really ridiculously easy, which I think might come from if Heather Fawcett is a writer for a younger audience. Obviously, a younger audience books, the conflict must be more easily rectified. In an adult book, it doesn't need to be that easy. I kind of felt like there was a bit of learning going on in this. Now, I'm not saying I didn't enjoy it. I had a great time once I got into this book. After the first 100 pages, I got into it and enjoyed it. But something was not quite there yet. As I said, I believe this is part of a series. So the second book, personally, I wouldn't buy it for myself, but I would borrow it from a library or from a friend. If I borrow it from a library, Heather Fawcett still gets paid. So it's not that I'm trying to, say this book isn't worth money. It is. Even on Goodreads, this book seems quite up and down. There were a lot of 5-star reads, but there was also a lot of DNFing going on. It's a hit and miss book. It's just not for everyone. Now, I would recommend it. I did enjoy reading it. As I said, I just had to get past the first third of this book to fully enjoy it. So let's go into my overall review of Emily Wilde's Encyclopaedia of Fairies. Enjoyment, I did give it a 9 out of 10. Now, I know that seems weird and contradictory to what I was just saying, but I did read it within 4 days. So I did enjoy it. It just had problems. Writing style, I gave it 5 just because of the so much telling and so much contradiction in the writing. It's like she didn't trust herself or trust the audience to get it. Plot, I gave it a 5. It's very character driven, which I usually like, but the plot itself, it followed a lot of Fae tropes, and I'm not against tropes. I love the Fae, and I do like the tropes in it. If you haven't seen the Tropes I Love video, that link's above me now. I've also done one on cliches, which are basically tropes you don't like. I love the Fae, and obviously they're based on fairy tales, but it just felt like in this one it was too easy, far too easy. For a Fae book that I absolutely adore, I'd highly recommend Spinning Silver by Naomi Novik. That one, it's not easy, and this one, it just needed to trust that it could go that way. It could get harder and not be quite so, it's finished. World building, I did give it 10 out of 10. You are fully in this world. Characterization, 8. Representation, I gave it a 7. And originality, I gave it an 8 because it did follow basically all of the Fae tropes. But overall, I gave this book 3 stars out of 5. Now, I did still enjoy it. 3 stars is not a bad mark out of 5 stars. 3 stars is still, I enjoyed reading it, or there was something good about it. The ones I don't like are reserved for the 2 and 1 star. So I did still enjoy it. It just needed a little bit of improvement. Now, maybe the second one has that improvement, and as I said, I might borrow it from the library or borrow it from a friend and see what it's like. But 3 stars out of 5 for me. Emily Wilde's Encyclopaedia of Fairies. It has so much promise. It just felt like it needed to go just that little bit further into the dark side of fairies. It was like it's both super cozy and horrific. And I know there were a few reviews of people who like cozy reads complaining about the horrifying scenes, but then there's also people who like the horrifying scenes complaining about the cozy. It's like 2 genres fighting against each other. You either want to go full cozy bit like The Honey Witch by Sydney J. Shields, or you want to go full dark fae. In the middle, it worked for me because I like both of those worlds, but it didn't go quite far enough in the darker way, I felt, since it hinted so much at it. It just needed Emmy Wilde needed to fail. She needed to fail before she could succeed. And that's it. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this review. If you like what you see, don't forget to subscribe to this channel. If you'd like to see as soon as I upload, click that little bell down below. You can also follow me on Instagram, Facebook and Tumblr. I post bookish pictures as well as my tips and unboxings on there. And thanks for watching, guys. Bye!